When we were left alone, it felt like a test. Not just of how we'd handle ourselves without anyone watching, but of how much we actually knew each other. My two brothers and I growing up, the three of us were a team, or so we thought. My older brother always played the responsible one. The one who made sure rules were followed even when he bent them himself. My younger brother was the dreamer, wide-eyed and naive, always looking for the good in everyone. Then there was me, stuck in the middle, trying to bridge the gap between their opposing worlds while figuring out my own. It started innocently enough. Our parents were out of town for a long weekend, something they rarely did together anymore. At first, we didn't question it. Dad claimed it was a work retreat, and Mom, though uncharacteristically quiet, confirmed it. Still, something about the way she hugged us before leaving, longer than usual, lingered in my mind. My brothers didn't seem to notice. The first night, we settled into our usual roles. My older brother lectured us about keeping the house in order while sneaking an extra slice of pizza. The youngest tried to rope us into one of his elaborate games, something about building a brotherhood code that we'd all swear to follow. We laughed it off, teasing him, but I couldn't shake the feeling that his innocent suggestion carried more weight than he realized. By the second day, cracks began to show. It wasn't just the way the house felt emptier than it should, or how quiet dinner was without our parents. It was the tension, unspoken but palpable, hanging over us. My older brother, usually glued to his phone, suddenly became more guarded about it. My younger brother, normally carefree, started asking questions about trust, about loyalty, questions that felt too big for someone his age. Then it happened. A message popped up on the family tablet, one we all used but rarely paid attention to. My younger brother was the first to notice, his wide eyes scanning the screen before calling us over. I can still hear his voice, shaky but certain. "You need to see this." The message wasn't meant for us. It was from someone we didn't recognize, addressed to Dad. The words were vague but suggestive, enough to make us pause and exchange uncertain glances. My older brother dismissed it at first, saying it could be nothing, but even he couldn't hide the doubt creeping into his voice. That night, none of us slept well. We stayed up late, talking in hushed tones, debating what to do. My younger brother clung to the idea that there had to be an explanation, while my older brother leaned into skepticism. As for me, I found myself caught between wanting to protect them and needing to know the truth. We agreed, reluctantly, that we had to find out more, together. The decision to confront wasn't made lightly. We'd spent the rest of that day in tense silence, each of us wrestling with the weight of what we'd found. By the next morning, it was clear that avoiding the truth wasn't an option anymore. It wasn't just about what we knew, it was about what keeping it inside was doing to us. My older brother, ever the leader, was the first to speak. "We need to talk to them. When they get back, we ask. No games, no avoiding it. We deserve answers." My younger brother flinched at the suggestion, shaking his head quickly. "We can't just accuse them of this. What if we're wrong? What if it's nothing?" His voice cracked on the last word, his hope barely holding together. I glanced between the two of them, my own thoughts a tangled mess. "What if it's not nothing?" I asked, my voice quieter than I intended. "We've seen too much to ignore it now. Pretending won't fix anything." When the day finally arrived and our parents came home, the house was thick with unspoken tension. We waited until the evening after dinner, when the atmosphere felt too fragile to ignore. My older brother took charge, his voice steady but laced with an edge I hadn't heard before. "There's something we need to talk about," he started, his eyes locking onto our dad. The room seemed to shrink in an instant. "What's this about?" our dad asked, his expression guarded, though his attempt at calm didn't quite mask the flicker of unease in his tone. My younger brother stayed silent, his gaze fixed on the floor. I was the one who stepped in next, feeling the weight of every word before I said them. "We saw the messages on the tablet. We know something's going on." The silence that followed was deafening. Our dad's face shifted, first to surprise, then to something unreadable. He didn't deny it. That was the part that hit hardest. He didn't even try. Instead, he sighed heavily, running a hand through his hair. "It's not what you think," he said finally, though the words felt hollow. "Then what is it?" my older brother demanded, his voice rising. "Because from where we're standing it looks pretty clear." My mom, who had been quiet up until now, spoke softly, her voice trembling. She looked at all three of us, her eyes brimming with a mixture of guilt and sorrow. "You don't understand everything. Can't. But this is something between your father and me." Her words only made it worse. It wasn't just that they were hiding something. It was that they were shutting us out, as if their choices hadn't affected us, hadn't fractured the foundation we thought was unbreakable. "You don't think we deserve to know the truth?" I asked, my voice shaking. "It's complicated," my dad replied, the same hollow tone returning. "More complicated than you realize." The confrontation ended without answers. Only more questions. We were left with a truth we couldn't fully grasp and a family that felt more divided than ever. The cracks we'd uncovered weren't going to close, not overnight, and maybe not ever.